Hey guys, and welcome to another devlog video for the NPC Manager system. This is going to be a fairly short one, but I wanted to give you guys an update on some of the new things I've been adding the past few days. The first one I wanted to show you guys is right here. A community member made a suggestion on YouTube, and then he later came on Discord related to the crowd splines that I showed in that video. So if I hit simulate here, you can see that this spline is spawning a group of NPCs, and what happens is once they get to the end, they're basically teleported back to the beginning. So if you have a closed loop, that won't happen. They'll just keep going around and around. That was the case on the previous video. But if you don't have that closed loop, then there's like a little trigger here that anytime one of these NPCs overlaps, it'll automatically spawn them here. And that way you can create the illusion of never-ending crowds walking. That was the previous video on that little city scene where there's like constantly people walking. But then if you really look at it, they're just spawning, not spawning, sorry, they're being teleported from the end to the beginning. And that's cool because you really don't want to be constantly spawning new NPCs. Spawning is a very expensive operation. So what I'm doing is I'm basically kind of recycling the NPCs and I'm sending them back to the beginning. So that's all cool, but right now is very, very strict, right? Everybody's just kind of keeping to their little path. But the community member suggested that I add the ability to switch to a different path randomly. And I thought that was pretty cool, right? And I worked on a very simple version of this. It's not finished, but I figured I'll show you guys what I have so far. I have this little blueprint here, basically called spline a crowd intersection. And it's super simple. You can see the options here. Basically, this blueprint here has a list of all of the intersecting paths that you have here. And then every time one of these NPCs overlaps, it'll look at the percent chance to switch, and in this case it's 50%, but you can make it anything you want. And then the NPC that is coming from one path will then switch to any of the other paths that are still here. So for example, if I'm gonna make this spawn just 2 for now, and I'm going to make this 100% chance to switch, and if I click play here, you'll see, well, we gotta wait till they come back here. There you go. So now look at the green one here, and it switched to this one right here. And you can see now that it is, and this one switched again to this path here. There you go. And then they're gonna spawn back. Oops. And in this case, this didn't work, unfortunately. That's one of the bugs that I need to work on. They did not hit the trigger, unfortunately, so they didn't really get to spawn. But you get the idea. I think this is probably doable with a little bit more work. Let's make this like 10 and maybe 10, just so you can see kind of what happens here. Oops, let's not make it 100%. Let's make it like 50%. But you get the idea. Basically, you'll have a crowd and you have different paths and different streets, and then as the NPCs go on these intersections, they'll have a chance to switch to different pathways, and that means that that you get kind of this effect of NPCs kind of going different places. So it adds a little bit more variety, which I think is pretty interesting. So I just wanted to show you that. As you can see, it's not fully ready yet, but I thought even just that simple thing of just switching was kind of cool to show. But really, the main thing I wanted to show you guys is I've been working on player interactions. So I actually had on my little roadmap, on my little feature list, not only having NPC to NPC dialogue, which you guys have seen, but NPC to player dialogue. And then I thought, okay, maybe I can include something really simple with maybe just a list of catchphrases, and then when you approach an NPC, then he'll say one random phrase, right? But then I was like, well, but what if you want something a little more complex, like an actual dialogue? Then it started getting really complicated. Well, what about if people want to add a quest NPC or some NPC that has a special item? What about dialogue trees, right? And it started getting so complicated that I was like, you know what? It doesn't make sense for me to try to include it because there's so many dialogue systems already in the marketplace that are very well priced and way more complete than I could ever hope to make. Instead, what I'll do is I'll include an easy hookup through interfaces. So it should be fairly easy for you to add your own dialogue system or a dialogue system from the marketplace with my NPC manager here, right? A lot of you already have those. If not, you can find them fairly cheap. So what I've done instead is I've created a very simple interrupt event that basically pauses the NPC's routine, and the NPC basically kind of pauses everything that it's doing and kind of looks at you. And that's all I have. And I'm gonna click on play here, and you can see here, I'm gonna make this big. You can see that I have a little widget that debugs the NPC's routine. You can see that he arrived at this place here. And now if I approach him from the back, look what happens. He turns around and his head kind of turns around to see me. And if I keep going past the threshold, then the NPC's body actually rotates. As you can see here. And I think I'm going to leave it there because then at that point, using the same interface, then you can pop in your dialogue, right? And if you look on the left-hand side, there's a task time remaining. It has 13. That's a way for you to figure out how much time left you have on each task. And if it's in a station, how much time left is on that station. Notice that it's paused, right? So that means that the NPC will stay in this state and everything is paused right now. And now you have time to do all your dialogue stuff. And then when you're done, you click again on interact and notice how the countdown now starts going down. Now it's 9, 8, 7. And if I go back and press again, notice that the NPC again stops and it's now looking at me again. And I also have like a little distance thing. So if I eventually go really far, say that you forget, like in the middle of a dialogue, you leave, notice that now the task timer started again and the NPC is just going about their day. So that's the main thing. Another thing that you might have noticed is that the NPC is going to one of these two locations. And that is because, and these are just random actors, right, as a marker. But now I've added the option on the profile to add a discrete distance. Discrete location. So you can have, as a task, go to a point of interest, which would be like this place here, which has all the stations. You can have the NPC roam around on a bounding box. You can have the NPC go to individual waypoints, very similar to ABK. Or you can have the NPC follow a path, and that's what you see here. All of these are very similar to what I have in ABK. So a task can be either go to a POI, follow a path, roam around randomly in a bounding box, or go to random waypoints. And now I've added the last one, which is you can actually specify specific locations in your scene, and then it'll pick a random location based on the task. And that's kind of what these actors are showing here. It's just literally a marker. I picked up this location, and the NPC just goes to that location. And the last thing I wanted to show is some damage code that I've added. So if you look here, I have now a new struct called General Settings. Kind of streamline this a lot more. And if I open here, you can see that now we have the NPC name is now part of the component. We have a total HP, which is now 10. We have a Boolean that says, can it take damage, yes or no? Important. Maybe some NPCs are immortal, you don't want them to be killed. Maybe like an important quest giver in the city, you want to make him immune to damage. So that's there. I also added runaway options. So if I expand here, you can say, hey, do you want the NPC to run away when it takes damage or not? And if the answer is yes, at what percentage HP should the NPC run away? And by default is 20%. Then you have other options like run duration, run distance, speed, search radius, and idle time. And you even have some HP regen right here. Oops, move that back. So every 2 seconds, the NPC will regenerate 10% of its total HP while the NPC is running. And it's going to run for 10 seconds, which means that it's going to get 50% of its health in this case. This system was added to the RPG combat. I think I showed it to you guys. So it's very similar, and it's all self-contained here. So you're going to see that in a second as I'm going to start doing damage to the NPC. Once I get to 20%, the NPC is going to take off running. And it's going to start regenerating its HP. So if I hit play here, notice that next to the NPC's name, we have the HP. HP is 10, and I'm going to start hitting him. So it's 8, look on the left, 6, 4, 3, and now notice that he's just running away, and his HP is actually regenerating. Now it's 5, 6, 7. There you go. And in theory, which I think is not working right now, in theory, it should now go back to his previous task. And right now it's just kind of standing here. So I can damage him again. And once he gets to that 20%, notice that the state is interrupt. So everything is interrupted, and it's going to pick a random location away from the damage causer, and it's just going to run away. And if I hit him consistently, just kind of try to, come on. All right, eventually I can kill him, and I have an option to play a death animation, or I can just ragdoll his body. And then there was a despawn timer, and eventually he despawns. So again, very, very simple behavior, but it's there. So you have the ability now to talk to the NPC, and right now all he does is pause his routine and look at you. You can easily connect your dialogue there, and now you can damage the NPC and kill it. And if you want, you can have the NPC run away. One last thing I did want to show you guys. Hold on here. And I think I'm just going to include this optional. If you see here on the begin event, I have a little collapse graph saying set physical animation. And if you want the NPC to have physical animation on damage, then all you would need to do is add this component, physical animation. And now if I hit play, then the NPC will actually react to damage. Look at that. You can see that it's using the physical animation system to get damaged. I thought that was really fun. I was watching a tutorial and I figured, hey, that would be really cool to add. But I didn't want to have it as a default thing because, again, the more components we have, the more performance heavy the NPC will be. So what I did is I made it in a way that if you remove this component, it will not mess up with the references. So you still have this code here. Depending on your game, depending on your performance, if you wanted to use physical animation, you can go ahead and use it. And that should be pretty cool. So yeah, that's all I have for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for all your comments. Keep them coming. If you have any other suggestions, yeah, let me know on the comments below, or join us on Discord, and yeah, just come and chat. All right, guys, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you in the next video.